I get ideas of spiritual tasks that the universe wants me to complete. And sometimes I matriculate them to the top of the list, and sometimes I leave them somewhere down at the bottom. It's like, yeah, I'll get to that. And I'm really in a season right now with infinite opportunities and possibilities. Because, you know, even as an athlete, as an investor, as anybody in your life, as someone who's building something, when the momentum's hot, you fucking go, right?
Ew.
But my momentum is perpetually hot.
Yeah.
So it's like, I have to get used to, I'm in a new landscape and I have to make a new set of priorities, and I have to really value the yin time, value my spiritual practices, value my grief practices, whatever I need to do. And of course, like, I can ignore it and continue to go on, and I don't want to do that forever. So right now is like a very strong call to just put all of the cards out on the table. It's almost like I want, like in those old movies, they have those like the war room meeting where you have all these different pieces and you move these pieces around. It's almost like I want a tangible vision board type of situation with all of my projects. And I want to look at them all, and I want to move some to the front, like I was playing chess, move some to the front, move some to the back, have a little war council with myself about what's really important about the campaign in my life.
I love that idea because I'm in a very similar kind of charging energy right now. And it feels really good because there's things that I'm really connected to that are moving. I want to be present for the ride. I want to be a part of it. I need to be more discerning because I haven't spent the time for my rest.
I have to rely on a faculty that's more intelligent than my brain. Subconscious, spiritual intelligence that just knows what to do because I can't figure it all out.
We had a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, let's fucking go, pal.
And, we were limited on time, but I definitely want to get into Awake in the Darkness. Mm-hmm. Amazing documentary film about your journey in the darkness retreat, which, again, we were just talking about the last time you were on, you had just come out of it. Yep. So I'm really interested to hear what's, been integrated since that conversation. I want to talk about Onnit. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to unpack there. We're not going to have a lot of time, but there's a few things that I really want to drill in. One thing that is of particular interest to me is you, Aubrey Marcus, the person, the guy I know, and then Aubrey Marcus, the brand. And so people come up to you and they listen to your podcast, they have some sort of touch on you, and they know about you, right? Because there's stuff that we keep within our tighter circles too, as much as you share, right? And I feel this too, like I share a lot on this podcast, so people maybe think they know me, but they as Ted Decker would say, they know about me and they know some things about me, but they don't really know me. So I'm really curious about what, how you manage that, because I'm guessing people project a lot onto you as this particular person. And you're like, it's part of like, you have a huge brand and you're helping a lot of people through that brand. You're very much a spiritual teacher, but there are some pieces, and I'm sure there's a lot of setting you up on a pedestal, which can be really challenging because then we don't get to have the real conversation, the heart-to-heart conversation when someone is viewing you there, right?
Yeah. Everything you're saying makes sense, but actually it's quite comfortable for me.
Really?
It's quite comfortable. It's because I'm constantly trying to disintegrate all of the projections that people are putting. I'm intentionally going out to remind people of my humanness. And that's just like a part of my sadhana, is like, this is a part of my practice, is to remind everybody like, yeah, me too. Whatever you're feeling, yeah, me too. So while I get some of that, like it doesn't really bother me. And I actually get less of it than you'd think. Now, that's not to say that there aren't people who are trying to take my name and what I stand for and rake it through some mud that they've created out of their own filth And, this is the way of our time right now. It's like, oh, somebody's saying things that we don't like what they're saying. It's challenging some beliefs we have. It's opening ourselves up to the vulnerability of the belief that we could be different. Fuck that guy. Let me tear him down, remove that option from my psychic realm of possibilities, and then I don't have to worry about it. I think that's a lot of the motivation behind it. Or they're just indoctrinated in some identity culture. They want to put me below them in their hierarchy of people who give a shit about other people, which is the most ironic thing in the world, right? Like, if I can put him underneath me, I feel better about myself because I care more about people, but don't mind the people that I'm putting underneath me to make me feel better about myself. It's wild it's wild that they are able to navigate that. So there's some of that. There's some people who want to project things that aren't true about me. And this is just part of the game. This is just like, this is a part of it. And, like there's this, I'm not going to mention which publication it is, but there's this big kind of media publication I know that they're after me trying to get access so they can do a hit piece. Because I've seen them do it to some people I know. And I don't know why they think that I'm so stupid that I would think that they're actually trying to do something nice for me. Yeah. Like, no, I fucking get your game. You cannot come film me and come film Fit for Service. That's a no.
Oh my God.
That's a no. So it's an interesting landscape, but I don't mind it.
And I will say that the stuff that you put out, and it's, for me, it's Instagram is where I see a lot of your content. You do a tremendous job of holding the line, of being in integrity about how you feel, but almost like just taking all those things out that, I would say could be triggering. Now, there are those who are going to be triggered, but they're going to hang on anything and pull from it what they want. But I commend you on wading into that space. For me, I don't really post much because it's just, I'm going to get a bunch of people that love it. And it's the incoming people that they're not trying to have a conversation. It's not like I have to respond, but I actually try to, hold space for them. But it becomes kind of it feels like a useless practice. So that I commend you on how you're able to articulate and really include everybody in, almost like you're front running, like what their argument's going to be, and it like comes in the next paragraph. And it's really well done.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately you can be right, but if you make your rightness make somebody else feel wrong, they're just going to dig their heels in and double down on it, right? Like, so it's how do you deliver an invitation for them to adopt a different point of view, and rather than trying to tell them that they're wrong. I think that's a big issue that we have. Everybody's trying to tell the other person that they're wrong, shame them into believing something different. It doesn't work. Invite them lovingly into a new perspective, and maybe you have a chance. Still hard as hell, because that identity that they're attached to, which is their belief, that thing has to die. And that death feels like a real death. So when you're asking someone to change their mind, you're asking them to kill off a part of who they know themselves to be. And that's hard.
Yeah. Well, I tip my cap to you, brother.
Thank you, brother. I'm doing my best. My best.
I'd love to just start with Onnit. And you recently had an exit there. And I'm sure it's brought a lot of different things into your life. And so I'm curious about, for lack of a better term, you got a big whack of cash after that.
Yeah.
And so how have you felt your relationship with money changing since, like you always did really well, but it's different when they're like, oh, by the way, now you have this. Yeah. And so it's hard to do. I know we had a conversation about it months ago, and, I haven't necessarily had that. My trajectory has been different. And so I'm really curious about what it feels like to be, offered this opportunity. What are the challenges?
Yeah, you would think that your relationship with money gets better the more you have. I didn't experience that. I feel like I was always, even when I was actually legitimately in scarcity, you know, things with the business dried up, expenses got high, taxes got above what my projected income was, and things were squirrely. I still found myself able to step into greater abundance easier. It's the most counterintuitive, paradoxical thing. And then I get all of this cash, and then all of a sudden, like, it's like, oh no, what am I going to do with this? It's going to evaporate. I'm going to make the wrong moves. Where's it going to go? Oh shit, I'm losing it all. Like it was a very strange kind of recalibration. And it was like, I had so much more to protect that it brought out a different mindset. And, you know, it's taken a year. It hasn't been a full year, but it's taken, you know, this amount of time for me to finally get comfortable and be like, okay, let me make sure that I'm doing some sensible things, at least with this. But this is concurrent with this very interesting macroeconomic situation where it's like, where is the safe place to put money? You know, like, is real estate a safe place? I don't know. Could be a big bubble. Is the market? Well, the market's been pretty rough. Like, crypto, well, that was looking good in November. That's
a fucking ride, dude. Holy shit.
It's a ride. So I don't know. I think it's really about, though, recalibrating my attitude. I think part of it was that I always knew that I had Onnit, and like I knew Onnit was worth something. So it was like I had a card that I had, you know, face down in my sleeve. It was like, I got the Onnit card. So now I don't have Onnit anymore. Right. So I have like, wait, what if I can't make any more money? What if this was all the money I'll ever have? Yeah. You know, and it's not true, of course, but I'm not planning to build another company like this. So in some ways, like, this money is different than the money before because it's actually gone from potential to realized. And once it's realized, then I can actually lose it, because you can't lose potential. I mean, of course you could, but it's just been a weird process, you know, and a lot of internal work has had to go in to like sorting that out, and also understanding, like, you'll read studies that show that, you know, people who have over $40 million of net worth are just riddled with anxiety about their money, and they all feel like they would be fine if they had 25% more, right? And they have so much, but everybody's saying the same thing, whether you got 40 million, 100 million, a billion, everybody's like, and it's this very strange psychological process. And I've had to like really check myself and be like, all right, man, fucking what is going on in your head? Because everything is great.
Yeah, and that's interesting. You bring up the scarcity, and it's like, yeah, 40 million, 100 million, there is that. It's not enough because there is that scarcity underneath it. And so I particularly love that you brought up, like, this potential was actually realized in a great way. Yep. And, you know, it's counterintuitive to what anybody would think. Like, now you have it. Like, now you know where you stand there. It's no longer, is it worth this or 2x or half of that? So it's really, I love hearing that perspective, because again, I haven't gone through that particular path. You know, and you mentioned this idea, is it safe? And so I'm curious, how are you looking? Are you looking for stuff that's safe? Like, if you had to maybe throw out a pie chart, like, what portion of it's safe? What portion of it is, you know, private equity? I don't really know where this will go, but maybe it's an 8x, a 10x, or something else.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, how it went down, 25% goes straight to Uncle Sam, capital gains tax. So that part is gone, evaporated immediately. Some of it went into real estate, and some of it went into donations. Donated a big piece of land to a church that's carrying on the tradition of my teacher, Don Howard. Mm-hmm. And so that was a major chunk. A lot of other donations. So probably at least 10% or more, maybe 15% was just straight up donated. Probably another 5% was gifts to friends and family, and, you know, a big like disbursement immediately. It was like Santa Claus's sack got filled. And
how did that feel?
that was really special. That was really special. You know, it was for some of the people who, you know, I was able to do that for, and it was life-changing. You know, I mean, I enjoyed their happiness a lot more than I enjoyed mine in some ways, you know, like that was really, really beautiful. And then as far as from the investment standpoint, I got like another 25% in money managers, kind of a safe, you know, quote, basket of different things, from REITs to, you know, market vehicles to private, you know, vehicles that yield certain amounts to different things. I stayed away from like, you know, kind of like the big funds and things like that. So they're a little bit more creative, trying to get a little bit higher yield, but it's relatively safe. But illiquid, kept probably about, you know, 15% liquid, just kind of going into the short-term bonds and things like that I could get access to. And then put probably close to 10% in crypto at the worst time possible. But I was like, yeah, 10% in crypto, it's fucking Web3. Like, how is this going to lose? In November, I was like, yeah, Web3, here it is. The writing's on the wall. Bitcoin to 100.
Yeah, let's go.
Straight to 35.
I didn't mean actually 100.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that was actually tough, because then when that was happening, I was like, what did I do? I suck so bad. Yeah. Like, so it got me a little bit more risk averse. Made some investments in some beautiful companies I believe in. But again, some of the companies were dependent on, you know, SPACs and like go-to-market strategies. And obviously the market's been really brutal. So some of those, which seemed like sure winners, it was like I was dancing as I was like giving the money away. I was like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Like this is a fucking
no more potential. I got this shit realized.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's been an interesting time. Staffed up my, you know, my own team as far as like what we're able to produce, funded some different media projects, including Awake in the Darkness. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. And it's an interesting time, because anything that I want to do, pretty much I can do. And so it's interesting, man. It's interesting. And I'm not good at it yet, you know, and I shouldn't expect myself to be good at it yet. It's like, I've got 6 months practice doing that. And so I had to remind myself that, like, it's okay, man. Like you didn't make your money being a good investor and allocator of cash. You made your money building something that you were putting your sweat and blood in, and that's what you're good at. But I think I've navigated it to a way where like things are pretty comfortable now.
That's great. And yeah, I think you bring up a great point. We all still need reps in whatever the thing is.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, do you have people that you rely on to kind of glean wisdom from? Because that is important, but at the same time, you've got to find out what works for you, what allows you to sleep at night. And then, as I said, you still got to get your reps, and you still have to invest in these different things and see how it feels for you.
Yeah. I have different people. I mean, everybody's like, nobody really has an answer right now though. You know, nobody's like, yeah, real estate for sure. I'm like, what do you mean? Nobody's even saying that, first of all. But even if they did, I'd be like, what do you mean? How do you know? You know, like everybody's pretty much that I'm talking to is like, yeah, I'm not too sure right now either. So it seems like chasing yield, diversification, you know, but ultimately backing things that I really believe in. That's what I've come down to, is like, do I fucking love this thing? And if I love that thing and I love the people who are involved in that thing, that's probably the best and safest bet, because I'm never going to regret that. You know, if I try to invest in some, you know, financial vehicle that I don't really understand, but I think it's going to get me some yield, and it goes down, then I'll be like, what did I even do? I was trying to make a bet. I was like gambling, and instead of supporting and pushing energy into things that are going to be productive for the world. So that was a clear message that I got. And I've done a reasonable job of that outside of my crypto investments. But at the same time, I do believe in crypto, and I do believe we need an alternate parallel structure to our current economic shit show of just continually printing cash, right? Like we need something. Also, we need to rebuild the way that we communicate. We need to rebuild censorship resistant, platform where we can share information, much like our brother Justin's doing with Zion and JP. Like, we need these things to exist. And it seems like crypto is the infrastructure for that. So I do believe in it, but it's the volatility is a little bit intense for me.
Yeah, it is. And I have the good fortune, I suppose, of having years of experience in trading, right? And so I'm able to relax into those peaks and valleys more so than maybe most people, because I just know, like, okay, this is the way it goes, and maybe the valley is a buying opportunity.
The valley is always a buying opportunity, but the problem for me is when things start to ramp up, I get the fear of missing out complex. Yeah. And then that's when I spend all my resources like chasing, like, I don't want to be the only one who didn't do this. I don't want to look like an idiot.
But don't get me wrong, when it goes up, I'm buying more too. It's like, fuck, did I just miss like this next wave?
Yeah.
Evidently I didn't. For people wondering, as of recording this, I did not miss any wave.
Yeah.
But you brought up a couple of things that I think are really important. One, you talked about energy, and understanding that money is energy is something that, I mean, I'm 50 now. I probably didn't understand until about a year and a half ago. And that changed my relationship to it. And along with that, you're talking about backing things that you absolutely believe in. And around the same time, I finally had that awareness. I've spent 20 plus years investing in plenty of different things. A lot of the things I didn't believe in, I did it for different reasons that are not aligned for me. So the fact that you've already tuned into that, you've got a huge leg up. And I mean, I don't know how many more reps you need there to understand, because that has been literally the most important thing for me. Again, in all my years of investing, is tuning into that. It just makes it very clear. Yeah. And it becomes a fun ride. And, with that, it actually becomes a game. And when money becomes a game, it gets really fun, because you're not attaching yourself to decisions you make.
Yeah.
When it's, you invest in something that you don't really believe in, but you think it's going to go up and it doesn't, you're just like, I'm a fucking idiot. Like, I don't know anything about this.
Right.
Right. And as little as I understand about crypto, I understand the overall ethos.
Right.
So I love putting money into that. And, Austin Floyd is a tremendous resource for me, and vetting where I should be putting some of these nuggets. But I love that you've already tuned into that. It puts you light years, but some people never get there, and they ride the wave of, again, deep attachment to where they're putting their money, when it's like so much of this is out of our control.
Yeah. And, ultimately, I want to use all of this. And it's not like I'm trying to hoard it for some future, reality. Like, I want to use this in ways that's supporting the world that we're in right now, because the world of 20 years from now or 40 years from now, like the people who have their, if I can't even, like, investing in something that yields in 20 years, like when you're in a company, what do they call it? Your IRA or your fucking whatever that is.
Yeah, your 401k.
Like, okay, maybe there's a world where that is valuable in 30 years, maybe not. Like, what can we do now? And not that we want to just blow everything now, but what can we do now that's supportive to building this world that needs to emerge so that we can all have that future? I mean, that's just the way that makes the most sense to me. So if I'm putting my money in places that are not doing that, then I'm just kind of wasting energy. I'm wasting potential energy.
I agree. And I had a 401k when I was trading. That was what, our company had that. And so it's a great vehicle. But once I left the firm, I actually put it into some other things that were honestly a little bit more sexy for me, because that felt like stagnant energy. It felt like I could be doing something with that. Now, not everybody, and I don't actually recommend everybody taking the approach I do. It's just something that works for me.
For sure.
But, one of the other important things is having dry powder. And what I'm hearing from you is, I've got money waiting. If there's an amazing opportunity, you don't want to be sitting there holding your dick like, I can't do this because I'm spread too thin. And so you have money in the short-term bonds and stuff like that, that's super liquid. That's really important.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be able, if a great film idea comes my way, and this is a, couple $1 million to make this film that I think is going to shift culture, I don't want to be like, man, I wish I was able to do that. Like I want to always have some resource that's like, all right, if it's go time, like I got enough firepower, to back it.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I've gone through cycles when I have been too illiquid, and finally kind of learning to forecast when there are some capital calls coming, and when I have to just start saying no to things that aren't in true alignment. And then that reshifts my focus to, why am I still investing in things that aren't a full yes?
Yeah.
So that's been part of my process, particularly lately. And it's been great to go through that, and without the shame and like, dude, you fucking doing it again. It's like, okay, here you go again. Like, what's going on in your life that you're feeling like you need to put your energy into these things that aren't really you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my biggest part of the illiquid portfolio, besides just the safe money managed stuff, is it's all psychedelic medicine focused. Got a great team called Lionheart has a great fund that's all, pretty much entirely focused on the psychedelic renaissance. And I really trust those guys. I actually have a great crypto team too that invests in all the new ICOs and things like that. So I have smart people who are picking things for me, and I pick a couple on my own, but people I really trust. I like them worrying about it.
Yeah.
And, because I like looking them in the eye, like, you got this?
Yeah.
And they're like, yep, we got this. I'm like, great.
Yeah. And that allows you to be in the space that is most you, and you get to be the creator and, just managing those people, but letting them do what they're really good at.
Yep.
So good for you. And look at you.
Look at me.
A fucking wise man.
Yeah, I just step in every pile of dog shit, and then I figure out which ones will keep my shoes clean.
If you step in pig shit, which we have at the house here, it actually doesn't stay on your shoes. So maybe you should consider getting a pig.
No, definitely
not. Oh, you should.
No, definitely not.
Bring Vylana over here and reintroduce her to Petunia.
Tries to bite my legs.
She's sensing an energy from you.
And I was over at our brother Garen's house, and the dog pissed on my sock. I don't know what's going on. I got to get right with the animal world.
I think it's time for you to look in the mirror. Yeah. So I do want to ask you about Onnit specifically. This was your baby.
Yeah.
You birthed this thing. And, it's funny because I've been tuning into this for just investments where I'm a passive investor for something like Feel Free or Gel Blasters. Mm-hmm. I love the ride. I love it. It's so fun. There's a part of me that is already grieving when there's an exit, because that ride's over. And I love the energy around it. It's, when you get involved with people like Colin and JW with Feel Free, and just see how they work and just supporting them in any ways is really fun. And so there's a part of me that's grieving that. And I'm curious, having, Onnit as your thing, and then selling, it feels amazing because now you get a nice whack of cash, but it's no longer your thing in that way. How has that been?
It's still my thing. That's the thing. Because I am so soaked into the bones of Onnit, like every single formula. Like I was there tasting and testing ingredients. I was there with the doctors and the PubMed, and I was there in every single aspect of it. So I don't feel separate from it. I still have my office there at Onnit. I'm in fewer meetings, but I'm still there showing up.
That probably feels good.
Yeah. And I'm still there showing up in support in many different ways. Every time I swing a kettlebell, I remember the first ones we ever got. And I remember that, and the mace in the clubs. And then I go out to a different gym in Miami, and I see people swinging a mace. They don't really know how to do it that well, but they're giving it hell. And I'm like, fucking A. Like it's so inextricable from who I am that I'm not feeling that. I'm not feeling that gap, which is nice. It's nice.
You got the best of both worlds. Because people don't. They sell, they're out. You actually get to enjoy the whole story of it still without as much admin around it.
Correct.
Wow. Fuck, dude.
Yeah, I know.
Look at you.
I mean, the whole Onnit thing, I have to say, I mean, I was far too stressed for the whole process, of course. You know, I mean, I think as a CEO, you're just trained to look for the problems constantly, right? Like that's part of your job. I don't know how you do it any other way. I mean, you can have more faith, but some part of the anxiety, I think, is actually adaptive to the task at hand, which is looking for every potential threat. So I don't know if it is even possible to do it another way. But nonetheless, like there was some, it's not like it was just a joyride the whole time. Of course, I was fucking stressed a lot of times and there was some serious pinch moments, but overall, I gotta say, this thing is like, I couldn't have written about it in a storybook in a better way. Like, I'm just so blessed to have been a part of that ride. And also every step of the way, we made the right choices. You know, we really ran that company with honor and integrity. And so what the company stands for, even beyond the products, is something that I'm really proud of too. So, and then, you know, our exit was like beautiful, and the team that we have that we're working with is beautiful. And Jason, who's running it, is fucking amazing. It's like, it is really the dream scenario. You know, I couldn't have scripted something more beautiful.
I love hearing that. Cause again, I had an assumption that it was more traditional in the way that kind of peeled off. But you know, the other thing I was going to ask you, and you partially answered it, like what's the kind of the most challenging, what was the most challenging part of running Onnit? And it sounds like always looking for problems. And that's not your orientation to life. You're more like, what's great about what's going on?
Right.
Like, where can we go deeper into that? But was there maybe a moment where Onnit was on the brink? Was there like, you didn't know it was going to make it?
Yeah, for sure. We called it Cashpocalypse. So Cashpocalypse happened. Cashpocalypse was in, I think, 2017. And we had gotten down the road with a private equity firm that was going to put in some cash. We got to the 1 yard line. So much to the 1 yard line that we distributed all of the available cash in our bank account. All of it went out to all of the stakeholders, because the very next day we were supposed to get this injection of capital.
Oh my God.
Didn't happen. So all of a sudden we have no cash. And we were expecting to get a bunch of cash. And so we're like, wow, like this is a fucked up situation.
Can you share how much cash you're expecting to get? Or
like 20 million.
Holy shit.
Yeah, we're expecting to get like 20 million. You know, we had a couple million in the bank. We always have a couple million working capital. You know, we don't try to run that too low, but we distribute all of it. So, you know, I had some money personally from that distribution, and so did all the rest of the owners. So ultimately, but we had all kinds of accounts payable and, you know, of course there's accounts receivable, but we needed that fucking window.
Yeah.
And it was so gnarly looking that our CFO, who we recently hired, Ace CFO, and he'd been working there for probably 4 months, you know, 5 months. And he just gets up in the middle of a meeting and he's like, yep, you guys are going to be bankrupt in a couple months and I'm out of here. And just walks out and leaves. And we're like, you got to be kidding me. He was like, he's like, you guys I've projected it out. You're bankrupt in a couple months. I'm out. And so Jason had to take over the entirety of his responsibilities as a CFO and the responsibilities as a COO during that time, and just worked with every one of our different vendors and just said, look, we're in a tough spot. You know, we've always had a good relationship. Like, give us, you know, move from net 60 terms to net 120, like give us a little space. We promise we'll be back. Our sales are still there. We just have no cash. And he just worked it, and people were kind. I mean, we've always been kind to them and they were kind in return, and we were able to build back. And I think Jason remembers the anniversary of the day that CFO walked out, and for a couple years he would just send him a little text like, "Hey, still here."
Yeah.
And of course that was a huge mistake that guy made, because he was, you know, he had a bunch of equity that of course didn't invest because he walked out, and we had a huge exit, you know, 4 years later. So yeah, still here.
Still here. That's That's beautiful.
Yeah, but that was brutal. I mean, I had to really come to terms with the idea, like, wow, this whole thing may end. But I had a feeling that it wouldn't, just because we still had sales.
Yeah.
So it seemed like it was something that was sortable.
How long did you, like, once you got that news that they weren't gonna come on board with the 20 million, like, how long did you have to sit in that? Oh my God, what the fuck?
It coincided with, I mean, this was the hardest time of my life by far. It coincided. It coincided with multiple things, like a loss of a very, very deep and important friendship, and the most intense, insane challenges in my polyamory journey, like physical health issues, like some of these. So these things are all of these things are actually they're so personal and they're so deep and they involve other people. So I hint at them and I allude to them, but I'm not even comfortable now sharing the details of these things, but all of them were fucking brutal, and they all hit like right at the same time. And it was really, really tough going. I mean, that was tough going. And I remember, there was just a couple people that I remember that were really there for me in that stretch. And I always, like, no matter what, I have a few memories of when someone was really there for me, and it's like, fucking A, like, thank you. Like, you were a savior during that stretch.
Dude, that's intense. Well, just to feel all that. And I'm guessing just like the hopelessness, like my whole fucking world that I've invested so much in whether it's a relationship, Onnit, just crumbling.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
When in
it was so funny too, because I had this big birthday party, and so February 2017, I guess. And it was insane. And I was full-fledged polyamory. I had my primary partner, Whitney, my two other girlfriends there. It was insane. I set up a beer pong table in a nightclub, and I could have closed my eyes and hit every cup. I was just balling people, talking shit, dancing with my girls. Like, I am fucking on top of the world. And it was kind of like this ironic final hurrah. And I actually had a guy filming there because he was filming.
I've seen this, right?
It is the video.
Fuck yeah.
And it was just me balling out of control. And then that was like the peak, and the universe was like, aw, that's cute. now how about the sewer ride? And I was like, no, God.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was, and it happened like literally days after. Like, some of the dominoes started to fall the wrong way, like literally days after that. It's like boom, 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 and it was utter destruction.
Yeah, damn. And I was going to ask the timing in 2017, because that's really when we met for the first time, was the fall at Onnit, when we were doing NAD together with Kyle, and Tim Ferriss was there, and Lance, and we had a good crew there.
Yeah, we did.
That was a pivotal moment in my life, as Kyle really came into my life. The type of guide he is, and just shifted my whole idea of what it means to show up for someone.
Yeah.
So super grateful for Kyle, Kyle Kingsbury. Likewise. For those who don't know. Let's talk a little bit about Awake in the Darkness. Again, we've spoke about it on the previous podcast, but for those who haven't listened to it, you've put out this film that is your journey through that. And I particularly, first of all, it's visually just beautiful. Like, oh my gosh, like Ben did an amazing job with the direction of that. But you hit on a lot of different things in there. And, one was, again, something we talked about before, your relationship to Chris Marcus, something that resonates with me. With John Callahan. And one of the things you said was, something to the effect of, he was really hard to love, or it was hard to love him. I forget exactly how you articulated it, but that like really landed for me. Like, what is it about it for me that makes John Callahan hard to love, where Cal is this different avatar?
Right. Yeah, I think when you change your name, you try to make a clean break and you lump all of the attributes that you didn't like about yourself into that name, and then build all of the positive things that you want into your other name, which
Fuck, dude. Yes,
which is in some ways cool, but in some ways it's actually just, putting in exile the entirety of your former self, right? Like you can't do that and not exile all of the beauty of who you once were. And I really realized that in the darkness. Like I had moved so far away from Chris Marcus. Chris Marcus was a failure in my eyes, and I was like, I was done being a failure. Of course, Chris Marcus wasn't a failure, but in my eyes, Chris Marcus was a failure. And so I had just kind of exiled that whole chapter of myself. And I'm not talking like the little boy Chris. I'm talking about like teenaged in your 20s, trying different businesses, failing, being depressed, going through the whole thing. And it was a clear message, like, no, I got to bring him back. I got to bring him back with love, and really love and appreciate every aspect of who he was and who he is still alive within me. So I think that was just a very clear message that came through the darkness.
And then how has that integration been for you?
It's funny, yesterday, or I guess maybe the day before yesterday. No, yesterday, I was at my little niece's third birthday. And some of the people who took care of me and took care of the house, more so actually, because I was getting older, from when I was like 14 up through, I don't know, as long as I was still living with my parents. So through college, 24 or whatever, 14 to 24, like 10 years, Irma and Martine, they only knew me as Chris. So there's not a lot of people that call me Chris. Not a lot of people. And they're not like on social media. They're not listening to my podcast, or whatever. But I saw them for the first time in like, I don't know, 15 years or something like that. It's been a long time.
Wow.
And they were there because they're still, taking care of my family's house. I've just never been there when they're there. They say, Chris, like so much love, and I have so much love for them. And it was probably the first time that I didn't flinch hearing the name, hearing myself be called Chris, or feel any urge to correct them. It was like I could see how much they loved Chris too. And so anything that I put out there that was like, oh, that's not me, would have just been almost gaslighting their opinion of who I was. They were so overjoyed to see me, not overjoyed because of what I'd done, but just overjoyed because they loved that version of me. Even if I forgot to flush the toilet sometimes, as a normal kid, but it was cool. It was cool to feel like I don't have that part of me exiled anymore, and I can really love it. And if someone wants to call me Chris, like, that's fine.
That's awesome. I love that as feedback too, because there have been many moments in my life where I flinched and felt tension around being called John. And I'm going to tune into that, kind of going forward, because this part of my work is integrating and loving, that boy, that teenager, that one who was, we know he's doing the best he could, and he was getting his reps in.
Yeah.
Fucking up.
Exactly.
Doing it, quote unquote, the wrong way, but actually just navigating through life. And yeah, maybe he was striving a lot more than I am today, but you only know that striving is not the way when you've done it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
It's got to be kind of challenging thinking about with kids, like letting them, that's really an aspect of the divine masculine in general, is there's some allowance of making mistakes. Like the divine masculine says, yeah, enjoy your separation from me, from love, from the truth. Like, it's okay. Like, I know you'll come back. It's got to be tough. It's got to be tough to be able to see see the mistakes happening, but know that there's some part of you that just has to let them happen.
Yeah.
You know,
that's great. It's a great point, because it's something that was really hard for me. And I wasn't, years ago, wasn't someone who I wanted my kids to be little versions of me, but still there was tension trying to control, like trying to help them navigate. And it wasn't until a few years ago where I actually witnessed them each as individual souls, and that just let everything off.
For sure.
And then I started to, the same, space that I've afforded myself in my journey to have my own experiences and to learn from them, I've actually been able to gift that to them and show up in a way where they actually get to make their own choices and deal with the consequences. And they're not coming down from me necessarily. And so it's like this playing of boundaries where there's like enough structure so they're not just fucking off all the time, but there's not so much that they don't know who they are. And so it's been a beautiful, I'd say the last couple of years, just the depth of my relationship with each of my kids has really gotten to a level that I didn't think was possible, because I'd never experienced it. And I was like, oh, I'm a pretty good dad. My kids like me, and they're not fuck ups. And just to really see the benefits of building that bridge to them, and really creating trust through my actions, not through my words. And so I think you're really onto something, where one of the most challenging parts of being a parent is letting go.
Yeah.
And seeing them as their own sovereign beings, and they just happen to live in my house, and I want to model good behavior, but I also don't want to hide all the shit I've done.
Right.
Whether it's, plant medicines or, whatever stumbles I've had, I share very freely with them, and let them understand that even when you fuck up, like there's learning in that. And, you're going to have to go through your own bit of that. So tell me this. You mentioned in the darkness retreat, you had a connection with your dad, and there was a forgiveness that was shared. And I'm curious if that moment has been able to bridge something within the relationship for you, or if it maybe just put you in a different space with your relationship.
I was angry at my father for losing his mind. I blamed him in some ways for, not being able to stay in my life. And I think the big thing that happened in the darkness was that, a really powerful vision that I had, where he was there with me and sharing his wisdom and his love with me in that vision. And it's shifted the anger, I used to have dreams. I would have dreams where I was yelling at him. I would just be somewhere and I would just be screaming at him, because I think I was angry that I was so close to him. And then now he's unavailable. And that really shifted, and that was important. And I feel like that chapter isn't done. I get ideas of spiritual tasks that the universe wants me to complete. And sometimes I matriculate them to the top of the list, and sometimes I leave them somewhere down at the bottom. It's like, yeah, I'll get to that. And I think some of the work with my dad is still down at the bottom of the list. Like, yep, I know it's there. Rescue the lost father, Ad Astra. Like, I saw the movie. I get the myth. I need to fucking go do this thing. And I'm putting it off. And I think it's important. And I'm really in a season right now where, with infinite opportunities and possibilities, because even as an athlete, as an investor, as anybody in your life, as someone who's building something, when the momentum's hot, you fucking go, right?
You do.
But my momentum is perpetually hot.
Yeah.
So it's like, I have to get used to, I'm in a new landscape, and I have to make a new set of priorities, and I have to really value the yin time, value my wu wei time, value all of these other counterbalancing efforts, value my spiritual practices, like value my grief practices, whatever I need to do. Like it matters. And of course, like I can ignore it and continue to go on and do other things, but I don't want to do that forever. So right now is like a very strong call to just put all of the cards out on the table. It's almost like I want, like in those old movies, you know, they have those like the war room meeting where you have all these different pieces and you move these pieces around. It's almost like I want a tangible vision board type of situation with all of my projects. And I want to look at them all and I want to move some to the front, like I was playing chess, move some to the front, move some to the back, and like have a little war council with myself about what's really important about the campaign in my life. And so I'm thinking about actually trying to literally do that, because you can do it in lists and digital stuff or a whiteboard, but I feel like I want to like feel them. I want to like put the energy and symbolize them in a thing, in a figurine or a crystal, or I don't care. And then be like, all right, what's really important to me? And then just feel that and then be willing to adjust it. So I don't know. I'm like playing with that practice.
Fuck, man. I love that idea, because I've, you know, as we were sharing before we got on, I'm in a very similar kind of charging energy right now. And it feels really good because there's things that I'm really connected to that are moving, and I want to be present for the ride. I want to be a part of it, but I need to be more discerning because I haven't spent the time for my rest. You know, my chi is not high right now, and I rely on some other things to pump up my energy so that I can be present for these things that are happening. But at the same time, you know, there's just an idea of laying it on. I fucking love that, dude, because I've whiteboarded the fuck. You see my whiteboard right there.
Yep.
I whiteboard a lot, and it's useful.
Yeah.
But I need a new practice to really get clear on what moves to the top. And by the way, the reason I was nodding my head when you were speaking about your dad and where that relationship sits, you know, kind of on the list of priorities, is I've felt the same way with my dad. And there have been some shifts that have felt really good, but I feel like we're at like the 10-yard line going the other way. Yeah. And it just hasn't been a priority. And I don't know if it's me just not ready, and when I'm ready, I'll move, or if I'm putting it off for other reasons.
Yeah. And it's interesting, you know, it's difficult to quantify the importance of it. That's what's hard about it. It's like, it's easier to quantify the importance of other things. You know, your spouse, for example. Okay. That's obvious. That shit's fucked up. Everything's fucked up. You know, your whole life gets thrown out of whack. Everything stops. Nothing's fun. So like, it's really easy to quantify putting in the work on your relationship, in that relationship. Really easy to quantify these big opportunities and things that shift your life. It's hard to quantify what the daily nagging energy suck and what the missed opportunity is from a relationship that's stagnant, you know. And it's hard to quantify that with not just the key people like family members, with everybody. And hard to say, like, I love seeing people and I have so many people that I love, but it's difficult to be like, is this worth it? Is this worth it? And I think what I've come to realize is I have to rely on a faculty that's more intelligent than my brain. And that's just my feeling. Do I want to? Do I feel like doing this thing? And if I don't feel like doing it, is there something that I'm avoiding? Is there a part of me that I don't want to see? Is there something that I'm averse to, that I'm actually pushing? Is there resistance in the way? So obviously we have to be mindful of that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think I'm trying to rely on my subconscious, you know, spiritual intelligence that just knows what to do, because I can't figure it all out.
Yeah. Dude. It's what I found is when everything in my life seems like it's humming along, it's like, my life is really good. I just don't understand the implications of what really, I don't want to say fixing that relationship, but actually having a
investing in it.
Yeah. I don't know what's
the ROI.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to know. I mean, and with, I know that there's a time and there's an opportunity for me to do something with my father. I don't know what the ROI is other than knowing that I did what I could, you know. And I think that's really important, because what is the catastrophic loss of my father dying? Me knowing that I had a task to do, and then looking back and going, damn, I just put that off and I didn't get to do it. You know, that's a bummer, you know, and I think that's not the only reason to do it, but I think the weight of that for the rest of my life would be heavy. And no matter what the outcome is, to know that I gave it my best, that I showed up and really offered the best that I could, like, that's important.
Yeah. All right. So let's wrap up with what's alive for you right now. What gets you out of bed in the morning?
I'm studying with a guy named Dr. Mark Gaffney, who's an erotic mystic in the ancient Kabbalistic mystery schools all the way back to the Temple of Solomon. And he's putting me on to a way of looking at the world which maps with so many truths that I've come to know, but with names and lineages and Hebrew words that are expressing exactly the sentiments that I had but never had a word for. And it's fucking blowing my mind. So that's one of the most exciting things that's come to be in the last, 2 months or so.
Neurotic mystic?
Erotic.
Erotic. Okay, that makes a little more sense.
I mean, maybe he's a little neurotic. Who knows? But an erotic mystic. It's basically explaining the universe in terms of allurement and attraction. How everything from the first principles of how subatomic particles are attracted to each other, to how the gravitational forces pull, this desire for ever greater wholeness, complexity, aliveness that comes when two people are in that communion together, and finding the divinity in that expression called Shekinah, like the goddess divine, is part of this allurement and attraction, and how we've exiled all of our eroticism into the sexual. But the sexual is only supposed to model the erotic. It's not supposed to exhaust the erotic. So it's about living a fully erotic life, using sex if you want to help you practice living an erotic life. But nonetheless, the entirety of life is supposed to be erotic, because if we exile the eroticism of all of life into the sexual collapses under a weight that it can no longer bear. And that's the ultimate idea. It's like, how do you live a life where you're so full of aliveness and so full of energy and zest for everything that is. That's pretty exciting.
Have you noticed any practices that you've let go of or brought into your life to try to tap into this more erotic way of living?
It's what all the other kind of mystics of our time have been talking about. When Ram Dass wrote Be Here Now, what is he talking about? He's talking about the eroticism of the present moment, like the aliveness that comes from being there. Eckhart Tolle's books, Power of Now. What is he talking about? There's aliveness there. Of course, there's kind of a Buddhist track, which is a little bit separate, which is kind of like, let's remove you from the passions of life, because they're so up and down, and the thrills and the defeats and all of that. But that's not this path. That's a different path. It's a beautiful path, but it's not this path. It's about really sinking into the aliveness of every moment and actually appreciating desire, lishma, for its own sake. So instead of worrying about the satiation of your desire, like, appreciate the desire itself. And instead of having it outcome driven, be like, no, I love that I want that. I love that I want that. Like, let me feel the desire without the necessity for the satiation of the desire, because life is desire.
Wow, dude, that's awesome.
It's cool.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap. We could have spent a lot more time on all this stuff, especially with the documentary, but I really want to push people to watch it and sit with it, because it's amazing. Where can people find that? Where can they learn all about you?
Yeah. AubreyMarcus.com. That'll work. Or Instagram @Aubrey Marcus. My YouTube channel @Aubrey Marcus Pod. I mean, it's all there. Fit for Service summits are going great.
Yeah, we didn't even get to touch on that. I mean, there's so much.
That's all going good, but everything's there. Just follow me on Insta. I'll point you in some interesting directions, and you can always check out my website.
Awesome. Well, dude, thanks for coming on. This is,
of course,
I particularly love these types of podcasts when it's someone that I'm so close to and we haven't seen each other for a while. So it's a beautiful way to catch up and, to share with everybody listening today.
We could have done this with a sandwich out in a park somewhere, but we just did it with microphones. So
that's right.
It's beautiful.
And some volcanoes.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks, everybody.